Hey everybody, this is On Screen, Off Screen, show where we like to talk about our daily media, how it impacts our lives. Our first topic this week is going to be kind of a shared topic, the electric state. This came to us via a recommendation from one of our viewers. Recommended we watch this. Ferrari girl, whoever you are. Conlon's going to share his thoughts on this movie first. It's kind of more your topics. Go ahead. What you think?
So I heard this movie was terrible from a lot of people, and I was not going to watch this movie. If you wouldn't have recommended it to us, I wouldn't have watched it. I had a good enough time with this movie. Like it was enjoyable enough. I think all the acting is pretty good. Um, and I actually think it's a really good looking movie. All the aspects of it, I felt very much like I believed what I was watching. And I heard that the cinematography and different things weren't that good in it either, and that's just wrong. Like it looks like a good movie. I think the robots are very convincing. Like everything feels lifelike. I There's a couple things that I don't understand in the movie, and they all revolve around the main girl. So the story is the main girl. Um, her brother was she was in a car crash, and the brother gets taken. She thinks that the brother's dead. A robot pops up from her childhood, and she finds out that it is her brother and tries to go and save him. Cool, kind of basic story. Not a big problem there. Makes some sense. She is super against technology, and I don't really understand why. She's sitting in class, and everybody else has their VR headset basically on, where you can control alternate robots, and you can be really effective with your time. It splits the brain in two, so you have one side that's having a lot of fun, and the other side can actually be productive and do things for society. And everybody uses these in their society. Everyone. It's kind of like having an iPhone now. Like everybody just uses a phone. When you're a teenage girl, you're probably not going to not have a phone and just be against having a phone. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And I wish they would have given some reason why she was so against technology. When they showed the car crash where her family dies and the her father, I believe, is the only one that's left. I thought it was because they were going to be distracted by some technology or there was going to be some kind of error, something to make her feel so rebellious against this whole society she now lives in. But there's none of that. So you have to take the premise that she just doesn't like people being on tech because. And maybe it's because her stepdad or dad is so absorbed into it and he's kind of a jackass. Maybe that's it, but we don't really know. And they should have given some kind of answer. If you accept that premise that she just doesn't like the tech, you can go along with the movie, and the rest of the movie is actually pretty enjoyable. She, go ahead, Josh.
I just want to jump in here. So, like,
Yeah,
it's her foster parent.
it's her foster parent.
So, uh, she can't afford the technology. She's just around the technology. And I think she sees the negative effects more so than the people who are actually in it. Like, I find it believable enough. I mean, like, I can't, don't quote me on this, but like, I'm pretty sure the car accident was with like a self driving semi, right?
I'm pretty sure her dad is actually driving.
Yeah, and they
Oh,
hit a
with the
self
semi,
driving semi.
it's possible. I don't know.
So
I
it
didn't
was like a
do that.
first generation tech thing or early adopter thing. And anyway, I
If
didn't have a
that's the
problem
case,
with
that's
that.
a better answer. That's a better answer. I did, I watched the movie and I was asking that question, and I didn't get that it was a self-driving semi or some kind of reason why. Like, if you're a poor kid now, schools all over the country will still give you a laptop, even in really poor districts. So if it was required that you wear this headset to be able to participate in school, you are going to have access to this headset. And when everybody else is using these headsets to communicate, that becomes your life.
Right, but like, not everybody has the foster situation, right?
That's true.
Everybody else in this world has grown up with it. That's her age, right? It's just
Yeah.
a regular thing. For her, she's a foster kid. She grew up in an environment where she was raised by this despicable human being who
Yeah.
in the movie literally just says, "You're only around for the paycheck." He's not giving her access to it. She's not growing up around it. She just sees what her dad does with it, or foster
Her
dad does with
foster
it,
dad.
and is absolutely disgusted by it, which is fair, right? Like, so
That is
her
fair.
hatred of technology was not one of the things that bothered me about this movie.
Okay. I'm interested in what did bother you. Um, I'll keep going through mine. You eventually meet Chris and his robot, and he's like a part smuggler. And I actually like the relationship with Chris and the robot quite a bit. It's a good buddy cop kind of relationship, and I think they do a good job with that. I like the personalities of the robots in this movie. When they get locked in the robot land, and there's those robots that are kind of like picking things apart and
Scavengers,
being
yeah.
scavengers. I liked them. I thought that was well done. I thought it had a good horrifying aspect without being so horrifying you couldn't show this to kids. They did a good job with that. I liked the village and what they're building, and they're trying to build this robot paradise. Thought that was quite good. Um, the bad guys they're not great, but they're not terrible. They're fine. They're okay enough. Um, and so that's kind of where the movie goes to me, is just like, this is all enjoyable enough. Is this great? No. Is this as terrible as other people said it was? Also, no. The one last problem I do kind of want to mention is you have this kid whose brain is the supercomputer that makes everything work, which you just kind of have to buy that premise even makes sense. But whatever, I just let it be. Cool. If this is the most important thing for your whole company and your whole thing, why would this kid not be buried 300 feet under the ground in a vault? Like, this kid should not be able to be touched by anybody other than like the United States military deciding to dig that kid out of the ground. I liked the last scene of the movie. I like the storming this company. I thought it was well done, but there is no way that kid would just be sitting in this building. Nope, no way at all. Again, I just kind of like let it pass. It's okay, good enough, but not great. What did you think?
I I thought it was fine ultimately.
Okay,
My issues with it is it's three movies with three kind of different objectives, and they did a great job of setting up all three of these objectives and gave
okay.
no follow through to any of them.
Explain what you mean.
Right? So at the beginning, it's all about grief and loss and doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
And then it kind of turns into this like prejudice is bad movie kind of thing.
yeah.
And then it becomes about corporate greed and capitalism at its worst. But none of those are really like themes throughout. So you kind of like have a pretty solid setup to a grief movie, a pretty solid setup to a prejudice movie, and a pretty solid setup to a capitalism at its worst set movie. But you don't have a follow through or even a half swing at the rest of those plots. So
That's
like
true.
everything kind of falls on its face. Chris Pratt's story, he's this ex-soldier who had a robot be nice to him, and so he gave up on this war. And what is his follow through from that trauma and that experience?
Apparently falling in love with the robot.
Apparently, just being a buddy cop for the rest of your life because you don't have anything else going on for the rest of your time in eternity. Like, you kind of like the movie ends and he has no direction, he has no purpose. Like, if you ask me, he becomes the most depressed person on planet Earth because he has no more reason to do anything. Um, the scene where his buddy cop robot has an 8-inch version of himself, I thought was the most enjoyable part of this movie because it was so well telegraphed ahead of time that the payoff is funny and enjoyable. Uh, But the main girl, her whole quest, save the brother, save the brother, save the brother. And then you get to the end and it's like, you can't save me because if I go, everything fails and I need the system to live. There's no logical explanation as to why he couldn't just become a robot again.
No, it's not.
There's not.
Not at all.
I get that your body needs the system to live, but you clearly transferred your consciousness to a robot. And while I would pick one that could probably communicate more clearly, uh, you
Why did
know,
you just do that again?
why don't you just do that again? So that it just falls on its face and isn't a good payoff either. You have the awesome, badass robot guy who's played by, I don't remember the actor's name, but
Breaking
he's
Bad,
hunting
dude.
him throughout the movie, right? And he drops his gun like 20 times. And I'm like, does nobody pick up this laser blaster exploder gun ever? Nobody thinks, get that thing away from him and shoot him with it. No, they all just sit there. There's no logical explanation as to why the corporation can make his robot work perfectly again when he's crushed by rubble. So like they explode, it crashes down on him, and they're like, "We can give you your robot back." Why couldn't he get his own robot back then if it was working just fine? They didn't have to like take it and go repair it or give him a new one. They were just like, return it back on.
Done. Game over.
What?
Yeah, you're right. I didn't even think about that. That is dumb.
They set up. They had this cool scene where Mr. Peanut like slices one of his things, and I was like, "Oh man, they're setting this up. It's teed up. They're ready to like knock it out of the park." Where he's like dripping oil throughout himself, and they're gonna light him on fire, and he's gonna like, nope, never comes up again. But like, the worst part about his storyline is he has this moment where he has this great line where he's like, "I finally met somebody less human than robots," right?
Yeah.
And you're like, great line, totally get it. And instead of saying like, "I'm going to team up with the robots now and fight the good cause," he's like, "I'm just done." So I mean, I get that this giant robot is wrecking havoc right now, but I'm just gonna. You guys can still deal with that. I'm just gonna not fight you guys anymore. Like,
I actually didn't have as much of a problem with that, but fair enough.
his whole character is based on this moral compass of like consciousness and like what makes humans different, right?
Yeah.
There's no way that his character would be like, "I met somebody." There's no way he said his character was like, "I met somebody so apathetic and so immoral that I'm just gonna turn the other cheek and walk away now." No, his whole personality
Is a moral
is
champion, a
fighting
moral
against
hunter.
that, right? So
Yeah.
there's no way. Like, I get that he wouldn't necessarily go and try and like murder the actual person, but there's no way he wouldn't just use his super cool pistol that nobody else has and blow up the giant robot that they're all trying to fight.
But wouldn't, if we take this premise that it's just the moral aptitude that he follows, wouldn't a kid being captured and basically used as a slave to be able to run all this technology be instantly like, "Nope, we're not doing that. I'm blowing everything up. Nope."
I know because, like, it wasn't that was happening. It was how the villain of the story was treating that,
But like, if
which
he's
is a
really
different
this
conversation.
moral compass, I get what you're saying. But if that's really where he's coming from, it seems like he'd look at it and be like, "That's obviously wrong. No, we're not doing that. Nope."
Right, but his is not like moral compass. It's specifically what he's moral about, which is what makes humans different than robots. Right? It's not right and wrong. It's humanity versus robotic stuff.
Robotics.
Right? So he sees robots as a tool, not individuals. Right? He's the symbol of fighting against like the prejudicial line, and because the CEO guy is so apathetic and immoral, that he meets somebody less human than a robot, he flips sides, right?
But they're using the kid as a tool. They're literally using a human as a tool.
Right, but like, what's to talk about quality of life and different stuff like that? And again, the kid also needs the system to survive. So it's a symbiotic situation. It's not a. Anyway, right?
Parasitic.
He very clearly questions that. He's very clearly like, this doesn't feel right. I'm going to ask
But
questions and get more information.
it's
But
not
it's
over
what
the
pushes
line
him
yet.
over the line is how the CEO treats the situation. Right? When the CEO is like, "Who cares? Nobody cares so long as they get what they want," and it's like, okay, like that's what pushes him over the edge. Anyway, and then it all comes to the end, and we come to this final scene, and we have the main girl giving this speech to all of the world because
And
she
no
got a
one would
video camera.
care about
And
this
it's the
girl.
most patronizing thing. And you go, that's what you wanted this movie to be about? Right? Like, you had the setup for the prejudice thing, and you're ending with the prejudice thing, but there was no swing. There was no payoff for it. It was just like, what are you talking about, lady? Like, that's my problem with this movie. It was fine. I think that, like, the special effects, the robots all feel real. They're all
Yeah.
cool. They all have good personalities. I love that their personalities are tied with their purpose uh, without necessarily exclusively being solely that. Um,
Yeah. Like the haircutting one. The haircutting one was like my
yeah.
favorite.
Oh, my favorite was the baseball one and Mr. Peanut. Or
The
not Mr.
baseball one is
Peanut.
also great.
I liked the baseball one and I liked the post office lady.
Post office lady was good too.
Yeah. It's just it was a lot of setup, and like you could have made three movies in the same universe with those three specific things in mind, and I think you would have had three really good movies.
Hmm.
But you just had three setups without any payoffs, and then like side note, I was really excited to see biker Pratt or trucker Chris Pratt, only for him to just be Chris Pratt again, which I didn't
No,
dislike. I
I was
just,
glad
when
for
I
that.
saw it, I was like, oh man, it's going to be really refreshing to see him take on a different role.
But he was the exact
But he was
same.
just the same guy. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
this is still great. I still love Chris Pratt. He's still great at what he does. I was just interested to see him take on that kind of different approach that we didn't get.
Okay. For me, this movie, I'd give it like a 6. I had a 6. What would you give it to? Give it.
Like a 4.5. Again, like, I don't necessarily dislike this movie, but if I measure it up against mediocrity, and mediocrity being Black Panther,
Black Panther.
right? It's like Black Panther is at least one whole plot all the way through. It's
Oh,
mediocre. It's unexceptional, but
I was thinking about
followed
that. I
through.
would rather watch this again than Black Panther. I would.
I on a plot wise, like there's just not, like I said, there's no follow through on any of these plots, and the
Yeah.
end just kind of patronizes to you, and it's like, okay, I'm fine with not watching this movie ever again. There's nothing to like really super criticize it about. I don't have any big problems with it. I enjoyed it. Like if you talked about like enjoyment, I enjoyed this more than Black Panther.
Me too. That's why I would watch it again. There are a
But
couple
I
parts that are quite
I wouldn't
enjoyable in the
enjoy
movie.
watching it again.
There's a couple parts I would enjoy again.
I don't.
I like the buddy cop aspect. That's my favorite aspect of the
I
movie.
would have liked a movie just about those two,
Me too, actually.
but we didn't really get that. Uh, so yeah, that's where I'm at. It's just like, I don't think I'm gonna watch this again. It was fine once. It's not one I would recommend. And gun to my head, which one would I rather watch? I'd rather watch Black Panther because
Okay.
I don't have any glaring issues that are going to be super irritating to me. Just going to be fine, and then it's going to be done.
Cool, cool.
All right, I'm gonna jump on over to my next topic. Uh, Oblivion Remastered. I really wish it would have come out the way they intended for it to come out, but all things the same, this is how Bethesda should just go forward. The power
Okay.
of Unreal Engine is amazing. I've gotten through the beginning kind of section, and it's basically the same beginning as Skyrim. Like, let's be honest, they both begin basically the same way. And I would rather play Oblivion Remastered because Unreal Engine just looks better, it feels better, it works smoother. It's just plain better. Uh, I think the modding community for Skyrim was really big. It was a big thing. I think the modding community for Oblivion Remastered is going to be even bigger and even better because it's Unreal Engine and it's so accessible and it's so much better.
Did you know they were trying to block mods for this game, which makes no freaking sense?
I have not heard that. No.
They've made mods anyway, but yeah, they tried to block mods, which I like. Their company was literally built off of like mods. Why you would do that, I don't know. But yeah, that's what they tried to do.
I don't see Bethesda doing that. I mean, this game came
I
out
didn't
like a
either.
week and a half ago. Nobody really anticipated it coming out. It's in Unreal Engine. You're just gonna have mods, and I think Bethesda will push for mods. Like it's such a big benefit to them. Um, I'm excited to keep playing more. My only like negative in this game is like clearly this kind of game doesn't work for me as well as it used to. I'm just not that easily into it. Like when Skyrim came out, I was like, this is awesome. I can't wait to
Hmm?
play all the time. This one, I'm like, wow, this is so much better than Skyrim. But I'm still not
That's it.
just like dying to play it all the time or thinking about it. It's really great. It's really, really great. But I wish it that the gameplay being like Dark Souls would have been true because I think that would have
That would have been
gotten me
cool.
more into it because the mechanics are more interesting. But all things as they are, it's just Oblivion in Unreal Engine. Can't complain too much about that. I think it's great. Uh, I said this when we talked about Half Life 2 RTX, right? The fact that it's going to bring more people into these older games,
It's cool.
it's a great thing. It's an absolute great thing, and it's gotten me to play Oblivion for the first time. So
Yeah, I'm
I'm an example
excited
of that.
for what you think of it because I loved this game as a kid, but the one before the remaster was really rough to go back and play. So maybe it was my kid brain being like, "This is awesome," and really it's not that good. I don't know, and I'm
It
interested to
was
play it. I'm interested in
you
what you
gotta
think.
you gotta remember it was of the time, right? So like, what were
Yeah,
you comparing that game to? So at the
prob
time, the mechanics and everything wasn't a big deal. Today, when you go back and you have modern mechanics and interfaces and HUDs, it's just so much better. Uh, I wanted to talk about remakes and remasters and like
hmm?
because this game made me start thinking about it. When you're talking about games, remastered should be old things that don't work anymore.
Yeah, I agree.
But when you talk about like movies and TV, you should not remake those old things. You should remake the things that could have been good but just weren't.
I agree.
So they need to start taking a different approach, and we need to not need to have remakes of these modern games, and we need to not have remakes of modern TV and movie, and they just need to take those different approaches.
I mostly agree. I think there are some old things where they tried to go heavily effects for that time period, and I think you could remake those where they just look kind of terrible now, and I'd be okay with that. But if it's a movie like Princess Bride, you don't need to remake that. It doesn't have any effects that look terrible. That's totally fine.
I think it depends, but like if you're gonna put the budget behind it, right? Like they remade Snow White, they made a live action Snow White.
Yeah.
They should have just remade Aragon, which
Yeah, that would
I
have been
actually
better.
liked, but like that was a movie that could have been good that just didn't land, right?
Yeah.
They should put the budget behind making a actually good TV or film version of Spiderwick,
Yeah.
right?
Or uh Narnia, even though I think the movie is actually fairly good. Like remaking that, I'm kind of okay with because you have one movie that I like and the rest are not good,
And I
and they
think
got a
that
whole
one
series of
movie you
movies.
like is only kind of pretty good. But with games, you just need to take that different approach of actually trying to restore these old IPs and bring them back. So, but
Yeah.
they both kind of try and be following the same mentality. I feel like where they're like, we got to remake all of our big things. I'm like, no, those things are still big and famous. We just had Moana. We don't need Moana live action.
No, we don't.
It just came out. We don't need that. And like that kind of mentality is interesting to me.
So, with Oblivion Remastered, how much of this do you think was a screw you Sky Oblivion? Because there's a lot of people who know about Sky Oblivion that think it was a screw you Sky Oblivion.
I don't care.
You don't care? Okay.
No. Like they've clearly been working on this for a long time. It's sad that they didn't get the release that they were trying to do, that they were trying to do a shadow release where they were just like, here you guys go. You didn't ask for it, but here you go. Which I think is a great way to release a game.
That'd be sweet.
Like we stop putting all your money into marketing. You just hype people up and everybody gets mad at the result. Just give it to us. Just give us good stuff. And that's what they did, and it's awesome and it's great. And Sky Oblivion, however it ends up coming out and what it is, it's not going to be official. It's going to have problems because, as far as I know, it's just going to be a mod on Skyrim.
It is.
And that means you have Skyrim's game engine, which I forgot the name of, whereas this is Unreal Engine 5. It looks amazing. It runs flawlessly. I didn't have to run updates and try and get this game to work. It just worked because it's Unreal Engine 5. And Unreal Engine 5 is amazing and it's powerful and it's super great. And it is the absolute perfect way to restore these kinds of games and bring them to new audiences. I just love it. It's just great. Right? And
That's
like,
awesome.
if it is just to be competitive with this, I approve of that mentality too. Right?
Okay.
Right? I mean, if we're talking about that, we had the really popular KOTOR mod that was trying to remaster it, right? And they got shut down. That's not the right way to do it. If you are trying to save the IP because maybe one day you'll do something cool with it, do something cool with it then and just outcompete them.
Yeah.
Just build a better product that no one cares about their mod. That's the way you should do it. I love the competition and just taking it on that way rather than here's a cease and desist letter that because maybe one day we might remake KOTOR.
Pretty lame.
No, just remake KOTOR and then on a random Tuesday be like, here you guys go. It's KOTOR in Unreal Engine 5 with Bloodborne mechanics.
People would lose their ever loving minds.
Right? Like, yeah, I don't care about that KOTOR mod anymore because I have this product,
This.
right? Like, build a better product. That's the way to do it. It's great.
All right, man. What's your next one?
All right, my next one. I really argued a lot with myself whether or not to watch this movie. And
Okay.
then I really had to argue with myself whether or not to even talk about this movie in the podcast. The movie is The Woman in the Yard. Have you seen it?
No, I've never heard of this.
Okay. It is a fairly popular new horror film. I
Okay.
originally saw the trailer just kind of pop up on my Amazon Fire Stick when I turned it on. And I was
Okay.
like, holy crap, this looks like it could be really good.
Okay.
There's this creepy woman in black who's slowly scooting closer to a house, right? And the way it feels in that trailer is just really, really cool. And then I looked up the reviews, and they were all like, this movie sucks. And I
Okay.
left it alone. I was like, okay, clearly not for me. Went on with my day. Like a week and a half later, it turned up on number 11 on an IMDb's top 50 horror movie list of all
Wow.
time.
Wow.
And so I was like, okay, I don't know what the crap is going on with this movie, but clearly I gotta give it a shot, right? Clearly I've gotta figure out what this is all about. Uh, After watching that movie, I was like, I gotta understand more. So I went in and I read probably like 50 articles.
Wow. All
Me
right.
sitting there reading with my eyes is a big deal. I read through like 50 articles. I watched like 6 hour long analysis videos on YouTube about it, really trying to figure out what this like 51 on Rotten Tomatoes is all about, right?
Okay.
It seems like 50% of the people who watch this movie absolutely hate it.
Okay.
And 50% of the people who watch this movie call it an all time horror movie.
Okay.
Both of those people criticize it for, or either love it or hate it because of the messaging.
And what's the basic message that they think it is?
Okay, so the basic message that they think it is, you have this woman who's creeping up on the house, uh, and she is a spirit who is a representation of grief and
Okay.
anxiety over the. So, basic premise, you have a mom and her two kids, son and
Okay.
daughter, and they're in this place where the power's shut off. The mom can't figure out how to pay the bills. They don't have any phone or technology. When they spot this woman in the yard just sitting out there in a chair, all coated in black veil, uh, just sitting there. And as the day goes on, she scoots closer. And as she scoots closer to the house, uh, things ramp up, right?
Okay.
And it ends with this like you kind of get to pick and choose your ending, kind of an ending, similar to like Inception with the top, right? Except this one, the woman sends her kids away, puts a gun in her mouth, smiles at the camera, and then you have a scene where the kids come back, she goes out and she hugs them. They go into the house, they turn the lights back on, but they find a painting with the words backwards. So it's a common theme in the movie that like the accepted ending of this movie is she killed herself and this is just her being dead. And the people who hate it are like, I can't believe you said that this is ultimately the right choice is to do make that decision, is to kill yourself. And the people who love this movie are saying like it is so cool and interesting that they took this movie to that level where they represented that desire so well, that they represented grief so well, that when it got to that point and you kind of have to figure out whether or not you decide that she did that or not, that they took it to that point because that's a very serious thing that a lot of people kind of shy away from. And the
Yeah.
people who love it are like, that's what horror is all about. It's about talking about these topics and it's about showing these topics and representing them. And this movie showed that topic and represented it so well. And how powerful and brave of them to do that,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'm sitting there, I'm looking at all these reviews, I'm looking at all of these things. I just have watched the movie, everybody's talking about it, and I think everybody has gotten the message wrong.
Okay, what do you think the message is?
It's depression. If you look up a review, everybody's going to use keywords like grief.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's going to use the word depression.
Okay.
So, my interpretation of the movie is the woman in the yard is herself. It is her representation of her depression that she has always dealt with and that she has
Okay.
always kept at bay. And there are things and lines in the movie that allude to her knowing who the woman is in the yard. Now, there's some downsides to it, right? Like if this really is just her depression, it would have
Mm-hmm.
been better if the kids themselves never interacted with the woman in black. But there are a few times that she does, right? If the woman in black was just this thing that the kids were feeling the effects of, I think it would make it way more powerful in that way. Um, but like everything else, it's about her. Like she goes through this thing where she sees through the woman in black's eyes and she says what the woman in black says, and she haunts the house, and she's so protective. Both the woman in black and her are so protective of the kids. And the woman in black makes her short with people and not want to explain things, and she lies about what happened when their dad died, the husband died, and the control and the feeling of hopelessness. And like there's this scene that those who hate it criticize this scene because this is the part where they say it justifies the killing of yourself thing, and the woman in black waves a candle in front of these family portraits, and the family portraits change from actual pictures of the family to things that the parent the what the kids would become if they were if the mom died, right? So it's like if the mom died, the son would become a doctor, and the little girl would go on and do great things, whatever that thing was doing. And so people who hate it are like, the message shouldn't be that it's okay to do it because they'll be better off without you, right? And if that force, that woman in black, is an outside force, that is kind of what it's saying. But whereas I'm interpreting it, is she's actually having this conversation with herself. That is absolutely somebody who's on the brink of making that decision, is telling themselves, is that everybody is better off without you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, like, it's interesting that this is such a hard hitting movie in the way that it makes people feel and the way that they react to it, because people are either so pro it or so anti it.
Mm-hmm.
There was one review that I saw that was trying to be a little bit more objective, but they basically ended like, I'm going to recommend this movie to all of my horror movie fans with the stipulation there is a 50% chance you're not going to like this movie.
But there's a chance that you will love this movie.
But there's a 50% chance you're going to love it, because there are things that they do well. I would do things a little bit different, but I think they absolutely nailed it.
It sounds honestly absolutely fascinating to me, and I want to watch this movie. What 50% were you in?
I'm kind of in the middle, right?
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
You're the one person who's in the middle.
I feel like I'm the only person who's in the middle because, like I said, with my interpretation of it, of this is just her representation of her depression, and that it's not just grief. Like, I want to stress that enough. Other reviewers always talk about it being grief. I don't see it as grief. I see it as depression, which is amplified by her grief, but is not
Grief.
something that has just popped up because of the dad. It is something she's dealt with for a very long time. Um, right? So, like, pro side, she has lines where she talks about how she's never really been happy, right? So they live
Yeah.
in this house because she wanted a change. So she dragged her husband out here. And then they have this fight of them being like, you're still not happy. I moved out here, I gave up my job and my life, and you're still not happy. And now you want to leave me because you're still not happy, right? That is a depression thing. It is clearly before the grief, right? Um, but then there's the negative of where the depression, the symbol of depression, actually directly interacts with the kid, right? So there's a scene where the son gets a gun, he goes outside and he points it at the woman in black, right? I wouldn't have that scene because you can have the mom do those things because of her depression, not the depression never speaks directly to other people.
And you could have the depression feel like causing problems for the kid. The mom goes out to kill depression, but if you are doing the symbolism thing, if she pulls that trigger, she's pulling that trigger on herself, and you could have done some cool symbolisms with that aspect. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, that would have
yeah,
been cool.
and like, there's a reason that the kid is out there. I won't give you, but like, there's a reason that the kid is doing it. The woman in black tells the kid something that he might not otherwise know. Um, but that there's a pro there, there's a con there. Another pro is this movie is better with light and shadows than Nosferatu. Like
Really?
we talk about the like creepy shadows in Nosferatu and how well they did with it.
Yeah.
I did not like that movie. You did, but both of us acknowledge the use of the shadows was great.
Oh, yeah.
This movie does a clearly better job with it. Clearly. This movie also does the thing that I love Woman in Black for, where it does the reflection, where it does some creepy things without the payoff of the jump scare. Um, Another pro there. Another con, the kids suck. They are
Okay.
just bratty, irritating kids. And it's laid on a little heavy. And it's like, we can move on from this now. We don't need another scene where the kid is being an irritating little prick. Uh, it is a little bit slow. You have the introduction, which is pretty good. And then you have this really long, slow part, which is effective in making the woman creeping closer more and like building anxiety. But
Mm-hmm.
in those moments, you're like, oh, can we get to the next part of this movie? Holy crap! Um, so there's two cons there. There's some vagueness about the dog. Like the dog goes missing, but it never says the dog dies or not. And then the dog shows up at the end. I really don't know what that's all about. It was kind of weird. So like, I just I don't know. I'm with the reviewer who said there's a 50% chance you're going to love it and there's a 50% chance you're going to hate it. But if you like horror, you should watch this movie. I'm with it. That's where I'm at. Like, yeah. But there's enough in it I don't love without the greater message being the problem. And there's enough in it that I do love and think is really, really cool, so specifically with what they do with light and shadows. One of the reviewers talked about how most of this movie is bright and how more horror movies are doing it, and how that's a great thing. And I agree specifically with this movie. Having it mostly during the daytime where there's plenty of light is a good decision. It totally works, and the payoff of it getting darker as night comes is amazing. I don't know what to rate it because it's like, is this an all-time horror movie for me? No. Am I really glad I watched it? Yes. Am I in this unique position where I don't love or hate it? Yes. Am I in this unique position where I feel like I understand the movie and nobody else does? Also, yes. So I don't know. I don't know where to put it.
I'm very interested in this movie.
I would love for you to
You
watch
have
it,
me like
and I
hook,
would
line, and
love for
sinker
you to
on this
hate it.
one.
I would love for you to come on and be like, I don't know what you're talking about, Josh. This sucks. Because like, there's so much good in it. It's hard for me to say that, And yeah, I really hope you like it, or I really hope you watch it.
I will watch it.
Love it or hate it, I really hope you watch it.
I will watch it this week. You've told me to watch quite a few movies on here. This is the one that has me most like very interested and compelled. I want to watch this movie. That's very interesting to me.
Well,
Very interesting.
if you do that, I recommend you follow the same steps I did
Okay.
and watch the trailer first. I'll give you
Okay.
it right now. Woman in the Yard has a, hold on, let me make it bigger, 5.1 out of 10 on IMDb. It has a 2.8 on Google. It has a 43% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 51% on Metacritic. The audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is not much better at 47%. So you have that information, you have my review, watch the trailer, because I think the trailer is exceptional. When I saw the trailer, I was like, dang, I gotta watch this movie.
Okay.
And then I saw how bad it was, and I was like, oh, never mind. But like, let us know what you think next week, because I'm so torn on it. It's so interesting. It's a weird one.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll let you know next week. I'll watch it this week. That sounds interesting.
Okay.
Interesting.
All right. With that, let's go on to our shared topic. I've been talking for a little while. Why don't you go first on this one?
Okay, so Spider-Man Lotus. I like fan-made stuff. I think it's cool when somebody has such a passion that they decide to go about and make their own movie. This movie is 2 hours long. When I clicked on it and it was 2 hours, I was like, oh, wow. Okay. I genuinely was expecting like a half an hour, 45 minutes thing. And I put off watching it because it was as long as it was. And I ended up finishing it today. The very beginning of this movie, I'm like, okay. I liked the Spider-Man quips. I liked the action scenes. It felt very much like a Ninja Turtles from the 90s, which I it's a guilty pleasure of mine. I love the first two Ninja Turtle movies from the 90s. The second Ninja Turtles movie might be my number one guilty pleasure movie. Like I genuinely love it. And I was like, they're doing the level of like a 90s actual production movie. Pretty impressive. Cool. It's got the lines, it has the movements, his voice is pretty good for the character. I felt like the cinematography was well done. They had kind of the cheesy costumes. It felt very much the 90s. That scene ends. And then you have the credit scene. And the credits are awesome. The music is fantastic. Like, I loved the credit scene. The credit scene, sadly, might be my favorite part of this entire movie because I thought it was so sick. It's one of my favorite credit scenes maybe ever. I love the music. I love the art. I love everything about it. The credit scene ends, and this happy your neighborhood Spider-Man character like completely dies down, and all of a sudden it is sad and it is dark, and it stays that way for the rest of the movie. You have Gwen Stacy, she dies, and Harry's dad dies in a big tragic accident where Spider-Man is killing Green Goblin, and you have all this backstory that takes place. And the entire time, Spider-Man is just sad because Gwen Stacy is dead, which I understand. It's a sad thing. But it's too much where it just like hits you and hits you and hits you and hits you and hits you. And you're supposed to get some joy and laughter from when he's talking to the kid, and the kid idolizes Spider-Man. He's like, look, this is who you are. And it's supposed to be a Spider-Man 2 moment. You're a hero to people. You deserve to feel like a hero. You deserve to feel full. But it doesn't bring a lot of joy. It still has this like depressing cloud. So it makes for this movie that doesn't feel like a great experience to watch, even though I don't think it's a bad movie. It could have been better by just adding a couple moments where it's a little bit of lighter Spider-Man. Like he's going back in time before the big fight where go ahead.
I I agree with you. I disagree with your conclusion.
Okay.
One of my notes is that like I just don't think that Spider-Man superhero is the right medium or theme for this movie.
I agree. I was
So
actually going to get to that.
if it just wasn't Spider-Man, I don't think you'd have those criticisms of it. But continue.
I agree with that, and I was actually going to bring that up. There is a really, really good fan made Nightwing series. Like, fantastic. It's one of my favorites. And it's a little bit darker, but it works more with that character. Where Spider Man needs some of that joviality mixed in. And you could have just done cut scenes about him going through the city, beating up bad guys, and it leads to the major events where we see Gwen Stacy die and him kill the Goblin. Like, you could have added that and expounded upon that where you have little flashbacks, and it would have made the whole movie feel more enjoyable instead of just feeling kind of like a drudge to get through. Which, when I was watching it, it felt like a drudge to get through. And that's unfortunate. So it felt like they spilled all of their budget at this very front part of the movie. And then later, they were left with, okay, we have this cool camera trick of making everything black and white, which they did really, really well. Honestly, I think they did a good job with that aspect of creating this piece of art. But they didn't have the work to be able to say, okay, we're going to have him swing through the city here, maybe do a couple of jokes. We're going to have him fight somebody here, maybe do a couple of jokes. It was just black and white, kind of cool scene, cool music, and more of that. Okay, Harry is mad at him. More of that. MJ and him are fighting. More of that. And everybody does a good enough job in their scenes. It doesn't matter when it just feels like a dredge. The other kind of criticism I had for the movie, it wasn't all the time. The scene where I picked it out the most is when he's fighting with Harry. The music feels like it's very layered on to the movie instead of cohesive. So you have the voices, and the voices don't feel like they match the music. They don't feel like they're brought together in a cohesive way. And it kind of just bugged my ears. Not terrible, wasn't always throughout the movie, but I did notice it in that one little section. And the ending feels too easy, where Harry just kind of forgives Peter, and MJ just kind of forgives Peter because they didn't have enough time to make something more satisfying. And it leaves me with the very beginning being like, whoa, they're going to do something really cool here. And just being like, it's fine. It's fine. Good for them. Like, they did something. They put a lot of passion into it, but it was fine. What did you think?
I don't know, to be honest.
Okay.
I think the movie quality is even pretty solid for even 2025.
Yeah.
I think it all looks pretty good. You can tell that the creators absolutely love Spider-Man, and the fact that they made like Green Goblin more comic book Green Goblin than any particular other Green Goblin that we've seen.
And the the guy who did the Green Goblin voice did a very good job of making it sound like Will Dafoe. Like, I was impressed, to be honest.
I was impressed too, but I wouldn't say really. Like, I wouldn't pay to see him do impressions, but like, given the situation, he did a good job. To me, the music felt a little off, like it was Spider-Man-esque without being Spider-Man. So my metaphor would be like if you bought a Spider-Man musical toy from China, you'd be like, "That's not Spider-Man," but it kind of looks like Spider-Man. It kind of sounds like Spider-Man, but it's not Spider-Man.
To me, it sounded like they had, okay, we can have these 4 notes and we don't get copyrighted. But if we add these 3 more that are Spider-Man, we get copyrighted. So we're just gonna stick to these 4, cut it off, add some violin, then do these 4 again.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's just like it felt just a little too off for me. I was
Okay.
not impressed with the music at all. You mentioned multiple times you loved it. For me, it never felt quite right for the tone of the movie. It never really hit for like Spider Man. Um,
Okay.
I think this makes the common fan made film error in assuming your audience loves the character as much as you do. Um, and the hardest part for me with that was I love Spider Man, but it's so obvious to me where they're taking from Sam Raimi's Tobey Maguire Spider Man and where they're taking from the Amazing Spider Man. But the problem is, those aren't the same Spider Man and those aren't the same plots. So you're creating issues. And I was not a big fan of that aspect of it. Um, the film focuses on the like Spider-Man dealing with grief, which is fine, but it's 2 hours of that, right?
It's
My
too long.
next criticism of it is it's a Spider-Man movie where you don't actually have a villain because the only time he's fighting somebody as Spider-Man, it's a flashback. So there's no
Yeah.
impending doom or incoming thing. There's no sense of urgency. It's just like, hey, let's spend 2 hours learning about Spider Man's grief. And it's like, okay, real. I mean, this is Spider Man. Like, he's got to be quippy. He's got to make jokes. He's got to, Toby Maguire dealt with this in like 15 minutes, and we're dealing with it for 20 minutes or 2 hours. Um, I sent this to you when I was about a third of the way through it, and at that point, I was all in. I was like, "This is fantastic! They're about to introduce the villain of this movie. We're gonna get some like growth of Spider-Man, and we can start working towards a villain. Like, yeah, the grief will still be there, but he'll have some scenes to like get through it, and it just never happened. Uh,
Nope.
by the end, it had gotten really old of dealing with like, hey, it's Spider-Man dealing with grief. I think this is so well made and so great that I would give those two guys, the guys that played Harry and Spider Man, I would give them a shot directing something bigger. If I was like a Disney or a Fox or a DreamWorks or something, or even a Sony working on a Spider Man thing, like I was so impressed. They direct as a directors, they did such a phenomenal job. If they were given the budget, I have no doubt that they could make something really, really cool. Um, as actors, they did good enough for a fan film.
That's what I
Uh,
think.
the writing was the worst part about it, I think, because like I said, they just make assumptions that you know what they're talking about and what they're dealing with. And this is a full length. This is 2 hours, which means you have enough time to establish your characters, have them go through the story. And we're starting in the middle and dealing with it for 2 hours, and we're ending in the middle still. Like, that's how this kind of feels. So the writing needs a lot of work. The acting needs a lot of work. The music is okay, but the directors did a phenomenal job on this one. Right? Because I
Yeah.
think if you take the Spider-Man out of it, which they easily could have done because it's just a show about grief, Spider-Man's ultimately irrelevant to the plot. um, you could have a really good piece about grief and having that kid giving this, hope and that kind of stuff. And it's very artistic and it's very cool. I think that they should absolutely steal those opening credits for the next Spider-Man movie because it feels more comic booky and better than actual Marvel intros.
I
Uh,
agree. I loved it.
it looks so good, it feels so good, and I think that's what gave me the hope that they were going to actually introduce a villain because that was just so good. But like, if I had finished this before I sent it to you, I don't think I would have sent it to you.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair because the rest of the movie is a drag.
Yeah. Like I said, it starts in the middle, it ends in the middle. Like, you've got a problem there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like they could have just told the story where you have more cutbacks and you do lead up to the moment where she dies, but you don't even really see that. You just see him get mad and then punch Green Goblin in the face until I think Green Goblin dies, or he leaves him there to burn to death. I don't really know.
Yeah. Like I said, with fan made films, I can absolutely excuse them starting from the beginning, starting from the middle, right?
Yeah,
Because they're fans, right? They
yeah,
love this. It's a different thing to actually write out and be like, okay, we actually have to establish who these characters are before these events. We have to, we have to walk the audience through. I can excuse that. The part that I can't excuse is it also ending in the middle.
middle, because it needs to go somewhere.
You need to have a Spider-Man villain. You have to have like it wouldn't need a lot, if Rhino was just tormenting the city and people were starting to, call out for Spider-Man. I really think that's all it would take. And then you would have like a fight scene between Spider-Man and Rhino at the end. But you don't have that. So it's like we're kind of just like going through the motions here. And that's not a good feeling for a movie. Could have done a lot more with 2 hours for sure.
I agree. I agree. So, what's your score on this one?
5 out of 10.
Okay, mine was a 4.
Okay. I'm giving it a 5 because the beginning is so solid. And I really have to like, if this wasn't Spider Man, that's what I keep going, but if this wasn't Spider Man, this would easily be like a 7.
Oh, okay.
Like if you filled in those gaps and spent the Spider Man scenes actually developing these characters,
It'd
right,
be
you'd
much
have a
better.
really solid movie and you wouldn't feel like he's Spider Man. But he is Spider Man, so it's like, like, yeah, 5 out of 10.
All
I'm
right.
totally fine with that.
All right.
Okay, with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this episode. Thank you, everybody, for watching and or listening. Super appreciate you guys' feedback. Been getting lots more comments. Got an email for the first time. Got a fan mail
Woo woo.
from her name's Mira. So I kept thinking about Psych all week because there's something about Mira. Uh, Thank you so much for that. Super appreciate you. Super appreciate all of you guys. We'll see you next time.